All right, this is Chris with Lone Star Grillz, and we're getting ready to do a video today about whole beef tenderloin. We're going to smoke this whole beef tenderloin low and slow, 225 for 2 to 3 hours till we reach that internal temp of 125, and then at the end we're going to reverse sear it. Now, we're going to do this tomorrow. Obviously, we're prepping tonight. We're going to do this on our 24-inch adjustable charcoal grill and smoker. We don't have a lot of videos out there on that, so we're going to do a couple videos to show the versatility of that unit. Now, with the whole tenderloin, tenderloin is the most tender cut of beef there is. So you don't have to splurge on this. It's expensive enough already. Everybody knows how expensive tenderloin steaks are. So Wagyu is not necessary. You don't even have to do prime. If you can afford the prime, that's great, but choice makes a really good cut of beef for this particular cook here. So I've done a little bit of the prep work on this. I've already tied it up. There's no need for me to spend 5 minutes showing you how to tie this up. There's videos that do nothing but that. One important thing is you want to use butcher twine. That way that it can handle the high heat. And the point I want to make about tying it up is what I've done is I've taken the tail and I've tucked it back around so that I've got one consistent size piece of meat here. So, you know, this was another 7-8 inches long. I folded that back over and tied it all up. Now, for our rub on this, we're basically going to do a dry brine like we've done in the past with steaks. Very, very simple. We've got 1 part kosher salt, 1 part coarse ground pepper, and then just a little bit of garlic. So we're just going to mix this up. Very simple. We're not going to use any complicated ingredients on this. You know, you could do a few different things. You could add a Southwest flair to it. You could add an Italian flair by adding different spices to it. But just standard salt and pepper. We're just going to keep this real simple for this particular cook. Again, like we've talked about before, a little heavier on the salt than what we would normally do if we were just throwing this on the grill. This salt with the dry brine, what the salt does is it's going to pull the moisture out, but when you leave it in there long enough, it's going to pull the moisture out. So that's why you want to make sure you dry brine more than 4 or 5 hours at least. We're going to pull the moisture out, and then it's going to pull that moisture and the salt and pepper back in, and it's going to season this really far into the meat. Much more deeper than you could get if you just did a salt and pepper right before you threw this on the grill. So what we're going to do, we're going to get this coated nice and evenly all the way around. Just salt, pepper, a little bit of garlic powder. This is going to sit up for about 12 to 14 hours in the refrigerator. And then we'll be back in the morning. We'll show you how we set up the grill. We're going to do a indirect cook. So we're going to do an offset basically style cook for this. For the first, for the majority of the time we cook this, we're going to do it offset, indirect heat. And then we're going to come back at the very end and do a reverse sear at the end. So we'll be back in the morning when we start getting everything ready to go with the smoker. All right, we're back getting ready to get this going today for our smoked whole beef tenderloin. We're setting up our charcoal/smoker grill here today as an indirect cooker. From the other videos we've done on this, you know that this is a separated firebox design. So we have 2 different fireboxes. We're going to use our left-hand firebox today as our heat source, and we're going to cook offset or indirect on our other side. We've got this set up with a good bed of lump charcoal. We've got some post oak wood chunks there. I'm using Fogo charcoal. I think this is the best stuff out there right now. This is what we sell here in our store. It's what I use personally. It's not a paid promotion. It's just the truth. I haven't found anything that I like any better than this. I've taken post oak and split it up into about some 4-inch chunks to use for smoke flavor. And we're going to use the Fogo natural starters. So what we've got is, again, a good bed of lump charcoal, a couple of chunks of wood. We're going to set this up today like this. On our next cook video on this, we're going to use this as a true stick burner and show you how that works as well. So we're going to do this indirect. We're going to light one corner here with our starter. We just want to get our fire kind of going here. So we'll let this go. It's going to take a little bit. We don't want to get this whole firebox going, so we're going to let this get going just a little bit in this corner. We're going to shut down our doors. kind of dial it in and let this come up to temp. We're shooting for a temp today of about 225 on this cook. And then once we're at the end, we're going to do a reverse sear, really high heat. So we'll come back in a minute when we get ready. So about an hour has elapsed now since we were out here a minute ago starting the fire. We've allowed it to come up to temp. We did this just like we would do any other offset or any other cooker. So vents were wide open when we first started. As we started approaching our set point, we started to choke our vents down here and over here. If I was using this like a stick burner, just like on a regular stick burner, I'd leave this wide open and I would control my temperature solely from here. But since we're doing the mixture of charcoal, we're going to control this a lot like our insulated, where we're controlling our input and our output. Also, we've got this vent here completely shut off, and we have this vent on this side completely shut off. Our goal here is to use this like an offset, so heat and smoke traveling across. Another thing with this cooker to keep in mind, my gauge here is reading 300 degrees. What you have to remember is this gauge is reading the air as it comes up off of basically the firebox, the hot side, and coming across. So while my gauge here might read 300, it's going to be different on that grate, that grate, that grate, and this bottom grate. We're using our fireboard here, and right now our bottom grate temperature is running about 220 degrees. So we're just getting close to our set point. We want to be right around 225. And what I've done is I've just kind of gradually adjusted that and closed that down as I get closer. So we kind of coast into our set point, kind of like a freight train stopping. If I waited and left these vents wide open and then decided to choke it down at 225 degrees, it's like a freight train trying to stop. It's just going to blow right past it. So we're going to gradually close it down as we get close to our set point. Got our tenderloin here that's dry brine for about 12 to 14 hours. Got our meat probe in here. Very important. With this kind of cook, a meat probe is essential. You got to have a meat probe in this because a matter of a few degrees, one way or another, is the difference between undercooked or overcooked. So what we're shooting for here is 125 degree internal temperature. Once we get at that temperature or really close to it, we're probably going to pull it just a little bit before because it's going to continue to cook a little bit past that. So what we're going to do is we're going to cook this indirect right now till we hit that 125. And as we get close to that, we'll come back and pull that off. We'll get ready for our reverse sear right at the end. Again, see my meat probe here down on the grate reading 225. Again, we were at about 300 here because we've got heat coming up and across, which is basically just a combination because we're directly, it's more or less directly over the firebox. So you're definitely going to have to take that into account when you're setting this up for the indirect cook. Just know that bottom grate is much cooler than what it is here, here, or even up here. That's what the beauty of this is we have so many different places and ways that we can cook in this cooker all at once. We'll be back. It's going to be about an hour and a half, 2 hour cook at this temperature, and we'll come back and get it set up for the reverse sear. All right, so it's been about 2 hours. We've cooked the whole tenderloin until we got to an internal temp of 120. What we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and raise that lid. We're going to get the air wide open on our grilling side. We're going to go ahead and raise this up. We'll let it get going before we raise it all the way up. So we're going to give it a few minutes. We're going to take the tenderloin. Take that meat probe out. We're not going to need that. We're going to let this sit here. We're going to let this rest. We're going to let it rest. So it'll stop cooking while we get this going. You can already see how much this is already lit up. So we're going to let this cook till we just get a nice, really, really hot fire. Let the rest of that charcoal catch. We'll be back in about 10-15 minutes and we're going to go ahead and get this finished out. So we've let this rest for about 10-15 minutes. Let our fire get going really good and hot. And so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this out and we're going to sear. Just for a second, we're going to sear all four sides, about 30-45 seconds per side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. No need to bore you waiting 2 or 3 minutes to sear all sides. We're going to sear it real quick on high heat. And then we're going to take it back off. Once we take it off, we are going to let it rest again. It's important to let anything like this rest for, on a size like this, we're going to let it rest about 15-20 minutes before we slice into it. So we'll meet you back here as we come back, and we're going to slice into it and see how it tastes. All right, this has rested a while. I brought Amber in. She's going to help me taste this once it's all done. Now that it is all done, I went ahead and took the string off and removed that. No need to see how to do that. That's just simply cut the string off, toss it to the side. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and slice into this now.
We are ready to taste it.
So I'm just cutting this up into steak-sized pieces here.
Looks delicious.
Got an excellent crust on the outside there. Beautiful smoke ring.
Yes. Looks good.
So you can see here we got a perfect medium rare all the way through. Beautiful smoke ring right there on the outside. And by searing it at the end, you got that nice crust on the outside. So without further ado, we can go ahead and try a piece.
Yummy.
That is butter knife tender. You can literally cut that with a butter knife. It just melts in your mouth. Little bit of smoke to that. Perfect crust on the outside. Not too salty. Remember that dry brine, there is a little extra salt. Looks like it's going to be a little salty. Definitely not over salted. That dry brine pulls that seasoning all the way to the inside. This turned out perfect. Absolutely happy with the way this turned out. This doesn't have to be done on this. We could do this same cook on our offset smokers, same way. This could also be done really well on the Santa Maria. Build your fire on one side of the Santa Maria, cook it indirect. When you're ready to sear it, drop that grate all the way down. So you could do the same recipe on several of the different units we sell. Bring that in here one more time. I want to show that, that color all the way through. Perfect medium rare. Perfect smoke ring from one end to the other. I think this turned out fabulous, and hope you guys give this a try. For more information and more videos, check us out at LoneStarGrills.com.